Welcome, everyone. This is a podcast on relations. And so, this first part of it's just going to be a review, and then we're going to introduce a little bit of new information so that you can go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead. So, this is the part that should be review for you. And so, what we're going to do is we're just going to go over the basic information, of a coordinate plane. And so I'm just going to draw, yes, this is freehand. This is an XY axis. And just a couple of things I want to review. We normally call these two X and Y axis. So this is positive X axis. And this is positive Y axis. This would be negative X. And this would be negative Y. The point where these two axes intersect is called the origin. And it's denoted by an ordered pair, 0, 0. Okay. Normally our ordered pairs are X, comma, Y. So you always write them in alphabetical order. All right. Now, these axes, when they intersect, divide the coordinate plane into 4 areas. Those areas are called quadrants. Okay. And we use the Roman number system to number them starting here, and we go counterclockwise. So this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, this is quadrant 3, and this is quadrant 4. All right. Then if you know the signs, you should be able to look at an ordered pair and tell me where it is without actually plotting the points. And so this one, you have a positive and a positive. Here you have a negative and a positive. Keeping in mind, I always do X before Y. Here you have a negative, negative, and here you have a positive, negative. Now for most of you, that part should be review, and that's perfectly okay. Okay, we're going to go on to the second slide, and here we're going to actually jump into the part that's new for you. And so for the next page, and let me get my pen, we're actually going to start talking about what an actual relation is. And a relation is just a set of ordered pairs. All right. Now, we can write the ordered pairs in different ways or represent them in different ways, and that's fine, but that's what a relation actually is. And so, what you have is your choices will be ordered pairs. You will also be able to show it as a graph, show it as a table, and show it as a mapping. All right, and so that's what I wanted you to see on the next piece. So the first one that we're going to start with, we're going to do an example, and I'm going to show you where how we would show all of that information. So we're going to go to the next screen. All right, and then this will be an example here. Okay, so we're going to use our pen, and we're going to call this example 1. And what we want to do is we want to express and what I'm giving you is a set of ordered pairs. This is a bracket. I know it looks terrible, but I can never draw them. Okay, so 4, 3, negative 2, negative 1, 2, negative 4, and 0, negative 4. Okay, and we're going to express this as a table, a graph, and a mapping. All right. And then we're also going to identify domain and range. And I'm going to show you how I want this to look so that there is no discrepancy or no question about what it is I'm asking for. Now, one of the things somebody did during class was the first thing is they said, oh, I want to tell you where all the points were. And so that's okay. So the first point was actually both positive, so it's in the first quadrant. This one is in the third quadrant because they're both negative. This one, X is positive, Y is negative, so it is in the fourth quadrant. And this point actually doesn't sit in a quadrant, it sits on the negative Y axis. Anytime you have 0 in one of the ordered pairs, it's not going to sit in a quadrant, it's going to sit on an axis, and you just have to identify which one. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, I'm going to pin that back so that we have more room to write. All right, so now the first thing, it's already identified as ordered pairs, so let's identify it as a table or express it as a table. All right. And anytime that you need to review this or need to replay it back, please feel free to stop, pause, and then continue because it is a podcast. Okay. So I'm just going to write the ordered pairs. So 4, 3, and then I'm going to write -2, -1, 2, -4, and then 0, -4. And you've just expressed your ordered pairs as a table. How easy was that? Now we're going to graph, and all we're going to do here is we're just going to plot the points or graph the points. And so I'm just going to make a little, XY axis. Okay. And it looks like the highest number is 4, so I'm going to go 4 in all directions. Now, keeping in mind that this is not drawn to scale, yours is going to look hopefully a little bit better. Feel free to get graph paper if that makes you more comfortable. I don't have a problem with that. Now I'm going to change the color so you can see this. So we'll always go over the x, so we're going to go over 4, +4, and then up 3. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. And so then we're going to go -2, -1. We're going to go +2, -4. And then we're going to go 0, -4. And you have now graphed it. So now you've taken your ordered pairs, just to recap. We've shown them as ordered pairs because I gave them to you that way. Then we showed it as a table. Then we expressed it as a graph. Now the last thing we want to do is show it as a mapping. I'm going to go, well, you know what? I might have enough room on this screen. Okay. So let's go back to black, and then we're going to show this as a mapping. Now most of you have seen this before. You probably didn't remember what it's called. I'm going to use ovals. Some people use squares. It doesn't really matter what you use. All right, because that's not the important part. Now, this mapping, I normally put X and Y over it, and that's fine, not a problem. Now, I'm going to list the table or the X values here. So I'm going to do 4, -2, +2, and 0. See, I'm just taking them from the table. You can take them from the ordered pairs as well. And then I'm going to list 3, -1, -4. Now notice -4 is there twice, but I don't repeat it. That's what makes this a mapping, is because you're not going to repeat it because there's another way to show that it is a mapping. So it was 4, -3, so I'm going to draw an arrow. Now there are a lot of people that insist that you let's do that. Okay, because I'm going to rewrite that so it goes all the way across. That they put them in order. That's fine too. It really just depends. -2, -1 goes here. 2, -4 goes here. And then 0, -4 goes here. Now I do expect to see arrows here. I do expect to see hash marks here. So there's lots of labeling and things I'm going to expect to see. Now the reason I want you to do this and not repeat that number, when we do another podcast that's on functions, that will make more sense. That mapping will help you tell if it's a function very easily. So that's why I want to make sure that we do that way. So now again, we have our ordered pairs, we have our table, we have our graph, we have our mapping. X values go here, Y values go here. Okay. Now the last thing I want you to do is identify the domain. All right. And the domain is just the X values. So -4, -2, put commas in, 2 and 0. Now this might be one where you want to put it in order, and that's okay. Okay. And then the range, I'm going to put them in order. It's going to be -4, -1, and 3. And that's what I mean when I say put them in order. Let me take off that. Now, the question did come up, do I have to write domain and range that way? Yes, actually you do. No, you can't just write domain above here and range above here because they're usually separate questions. So I expect you to write it like this. This is just a grouping symbol. Use parentheses. I don't care. It's just a grouping symbol. All right? So you have actually now gone through an entire example on relations. Okay? So I have one more that I want to give you. At this point, I would suggest that I give you the information. I'm going to have you pause. I would pause, do the table, the graph, and the mapping, identify the domain and range, and then check and see if yours matches mine. That's totally up to you. You can do this. Anybody can you can make up some ordered pairs and just do this. It's nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to go to another screen, and then I'll be honest, this one's done. All right. And so, I I think I'm going to insert and see if I can type it and make it look a little bit better. So bear with me a little bit here. All right, and so we're going to say, whoops, well, we're going to spell it right. Express, and we're going to do 4, comma, -3, close your parentheses. We're going to do another ordered pair, 3, comma, 2, close that, another ordered pair. And then this makes it a little bit easier to read. I kind of like this. It just takes a little time, and as most of you know, I'm not very patient. Nothing usually moves fast enough for me. And a lot of you are like that, so you kind of understand where I'm going with that. Okay, and then 0, whoops, comma, -3. Now, this is the first time that a lot of you are seeing these podcasts, and so I hope that it works for you. But the nice thing is it's up as a review. So as a table, graph, and a mapping. And then I want you to identify the domain and range. Wow, that looks so much nicer and easier to read, huh? Yeah, you can say it. It doesn't hurt my feelings, trust me. You guys should know that by now. Okay, so we are going to be done. I am going to take my text tool off. And like I said, this would be the point where I would pause and actually do the example. And so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Again, you pause, you give it a try. So that will be, I'm going to change the pen color. I kind of like these different pen colors. They look much better here. So I'm going to go ahead. And it's already expressed as an ordered pair, so that's fine. If you wanted to identify the quadrants, that's okay. This would be quadrant, let's see, positive, negative. This would be quadrant 4. This would be quadrant 1. Whoops. This would be quadrant negative, positive, negative 2. And then this would be a negative y, so negative y axis. Again, you don't have to do that, but you do need to know how to do it. Okay, so then the next piece that we're going to go to, let's make our table. All right, and we have 4, -3. We have 3, 2. We have -4, 1. And we have 0, -3. So there's our table. Now our graph, I'm going to, again, I see that 4 is our biggest number, so I'm just going to make hash marks. And I do expect hash marks. Don't just be drawing and making things in the random air and there's no connection to anything, because I will mark that wrong because it doesn't make sense to anybody. Nobody can interpret it. I'm going to change the pen color again. I like this pink. It shows up really well. So we're going to do 4, -3, so it's going to be down here somewhere. Now you can label the points like letters is what I would do rather than numbers, like A, B, C, and D. And you'll probably see that later on because a lot of people do that, particularly if you have a lot of points. All right. And then -4, +1 is going to be here, and 0, -3 is going to be here. And so that takes care of your graph. Okay. Let's change the pen color back. Now we're ready for a mapping. All right, and so for the mapping, I'm going to do here and here. I actually can do shapes here. Let's try that. And let's do they have like a, no, I don't think I like any of those. Okay, so let's go back. Alrighty, yeah, I don't like those. I'll just make my own. I have some programs that'll do shapes and stuff, and if I play with it, I can do that. So this is just practicing. The more I use it, the more stuff I learn and get better at. Okay, so I'm going to put my x values here. So 4, 3, -4, 0. And then I'm going to do -3, 2, and 1. Notice I'm not repeating the -3. So now let's go through and let's do that one. And let's draw our arrows. So 4, -3 was right there. 3, 2 is right there. Negative 4, 1 is right there. And then 0, negative 3 is right here. Okay, I know that looks kind of crazy. It's a little harder when you're holding the board. All right, so now the last thing we want to do is I want to identify our domain and range. All right, and so remember, don't repeat in here. You don't need to. So our domain is going to be, I'm going to put mine in order, so negative 4, 0, 3, 4. And then my range, this is going to be negative 3, 1, and 2. And guys, you have just finished a lesson on relations, so shouldn't have been that hard. Now, this, you guys actually, there's a sub today, so what I'd like you to do is the sub will hand you a packet with the first part. And so as you go through the packet, and if you want to follow along, you can. I'd like you to do C1 because you should be able to do that. That's not hard. All right. And then I'd like you to look at C2. Now C2, what you're doing is there are numbers across the bottom and letters up the y-axis. And so all you're doing is you're just going to plot where a grade is. So if a grade, they say if 70% is a C, you're going to go over and plot where 70 is, which is about halfway, and then you're going to go up to where C is, and you're going to put a point. That's what they mean. And then the bottom is you're just going to answer questions, okay? We talked about independent and dependent variables yesterday and went through a couple of examples. That's also available in your book. You do have the laptops. So those of you who have checked out a book, who have an online book, and that's only 5 of you, you have to use the laptops. Okay. The others, you can just use it, watch a podcast, and that. You can also watch on your electronic devices. Make sure you have headphones. Now, then I actually want you to do C6, but you might have to wait on the first page of C6. Go down to the second part where it says mapping diagram, and then it walks you through that, everything that we just talked about. So I want you to do all of that. And then we're going to go over this later, but I've gone through all of these notes with you. And so anything that says function, I'd like you to hold off on until after you watch the next podcast. All right. So thank you, and I'll see you on the next one.